Hello everyone. So I went to a conscious intimacy and sexuality retreat last week for 5 days. And oh my goodness, I learnt so much about myself. I loved it. It was incredibly intense and I did struggle a lot at times. Because I came up against all my triggers. That people don't like me, I can't connect to anyone, I feel alone, I'm not interesting enough, I'm not attractive enough or slim enough or even young enough. I went through anxiety a lot of the time and intense vulnerability. But we participated in many workshops to help us learn to express our needs and understand where our boundaries are in this world of intimacy, with ourselves and others. And even though I heard what they were saying, my old patterns of conditioned behaviour kept popping up to face me. So at times I couldn't ask for what I wanted or needed, and I knew I was being untrue to myself. You see, I am incredibly afraid of rejection. It's one of the biggest things in my life. And so in this space, I saw that the protective part of me would rather compromise my own happiness than be rejected. And I see this really clearly now. And I really see that it has to stop. It's crazy, really. So by protecting myself from the feeling of rejection, which I know comes from my mother wound and feeling rejected by my mother when I was very young, I realise I have to open myself up to allow myself to feel the hurt of rejection. Because I feel hurt anyway. The pain of the unmet need in me is like the biggest betrayal against myself. So I've realised I have to go for what I want in life because I may get a yes, And actually in sessions, I struggled to say no to people sometimes because I didn't want to hurt their feelings. So I compromised my own feelings for them. Now, I know that I do this. I've done it most of my life, and this is really comfortable ground for me. And so I recognise that I'm desperately trying to live my life in truth, but at the same time, I'm pushing it away because I don't want to be hurt. I don't want to feel uncomfortable feelings. Can anyone relate to this? This is an incredibly painful place to live, like in battle with ourselves all the time. And I'm, always second-guessing myself, always afraid of what might happen, always thinking the worst. And then projecting out that everyone else is better, having a better experience than me, feeling more connected with me. But this is why I went to the festival in the first place, to come up against all this shit, because that's what it is. I thought, bring it on, this is what I want. So as I was sometimes sinking, I also allowed myself to flow into something new, to start stepping into my vulnerability and to own it, and to share it with others. And I realised that most people were feeling the same. So we had a great programme of workshops throughout the 5 days to help us gently start shedding these layers of protection that we all have building up in us. And we did a ritual relating to grief. And I saw how everyone in that space, there's about 110 people there, had hurt, pain, and sadness that they needed to express. So we did it together. We cried, we shouted, we wailed, or we sat in silence as we expressed ourselves in this beautifully held space. We held each other in presence, and I really realised that I'm not alone. And we had an altar where we could express this, and I really love the power of ritual. I think it's often misunderstood in our culture, but I love it. There's something so powerful and beautiful about using ritual to help us process and express our emotions. I think rituals help us get out of the thinking mind and into our bodies more, especially because we tend to use our bodies in ritual, whether it's kneeling down at your altar every day or bowing or surrendering in posture. And we also did a powerful exercise where we welcomed each other into our tribe. So if you think about it, this is how every one of us should feel when we are born, really welcomed into the fold, into our village, with love, care, trust, just purely as we are. But this very rarely happens. We're often dragged from our mother's womb, aren't we, and just put into a routine that the current culture thinks is the right way to be. And this starts the separation from self and other, and this is where it begins. And I just think this is so sad. Like when I was born, I was taken from my mother and put into a room full of other crying babies. And I was only taken back to my mother at feeding time. Now, when you think about it, this is quite barbaric. And this went on for 2 weeks. She was in hospital. And she could smoke on the ward, but that's a whole other thing. But how is this welcoming me into the tribe? So, as it was my turn to go through this purpose, I was sat in front of a group of people and they started just welcoming me into the tribe. They were saying, welcome, welcome, welcome. That's all they were saying. And at first I was like, oh yeah, this feels nice. And then eventually my nervous system started to go into resistance. My mind, that voice in my mind, started to think, they're not real. They don't like you. They don't welcome you. And then intense anger started to build up in my body. Oh my God. I felt so enraged with them for trying to accept me. And then I literally began to scream at them. It just went, rah, rah, but fully loud. I was like a feral animal. And I realised it was years of feeling unlovable and rejected, just screaming out of me in an expression that I'd denied myself my whole life. Oh my God, what an experience. I would never have allowed myself to do this usually. If I'd gone to this festival a year ago, I would have just suppressed it and pretended. But as soon as I finished expressing, guess what happened? My heart opened and this incredible peace came over me. And then I was open enough to receive their love. I didn't realise I was holding on to so much rage. And this is a lesson for all of us. If we are holding on to pain from the past, we cannot love in the now. No matter how much we think we are loving or over the past, if we are not living to our truth and authenticity, then we are not fully free. And we all know deep down if we are not. And this is what shows up as our stress, mood swings, anxiety, fear, hurt, pain, regret, intimacy issues. And you name it, it's there, you know. So only expression can heal and integrate our past. I think we can understand this on a cognitive level, but this doesn't fully integrate because we're not taking into account the holding in our body. And we need to use our body to express our emotions. And this retreat helped me to take these first steps into really embodying myself. And also every evening there was a space where we could explore intimacy together and work on asking for what we wanted, where our boundaries were. And we did a lot of work to prepare ourselves for this space. Now I think, as you may know, I've shared that I was sexually abused as a child. And this experience robbed me of me knowing where my boundaries were, because my boundaries were crossed when I was too young to even know that boundaries existed. But my nervous system knew that I felt unsafe. And so I went into freeze. And I've been in freeze most of my life ever since. And the shame of not having agency over my own body, and therefore a sense of self, lives in every single cell of my body. But I didn't even know that was what was happening to me, because this showed up in me as not being able to show myself in my life. I've always played small. I've always hid myself. I've been unable to trust myself, unable to put myself first, unable to enjoy my body without feeling shame. And this festival really helped me start to shed these layers of shame. It was so liberating. It helped me see that I am allowed to love myself and my body. I am allowed to share my body, to receive pleasure and to give pleasure. I am allowed to have desire and express this clearly in an empowered way. It helped me that this desire for touch and intimacy, I realised is programmed into us from birth, and it's a natural part of the human experience. Where would we be without touch and intimacy? And I felt a lot closer to men. You beautiful men. I love being around embodied male energy. I have spoken before about how I tended to label most masculinity as toxic. And in another video, I list the qualities of masculinity and femininity and their toxic qualities and their pure embodied qualities as well. And I was around so many men who want the same thing as me. You know, they want to be seen, to have their needs expressed and received. They want the longing of their hearts to be seen, just like me, just like you, just like every human being on this planet. Just like the crazy leaders out there who are so hurt by the pain from their unmet longing that they try and fill it with power and greed. And above all, this weekend, I learned that I am allowed to be me. I am allowed to be me. I am allowed to be me. Welcome home. Welcome home, me. And I am whole as well. Welcome to my wholeness. And you beautiful soul, you are allowed to be you. You are allowed to be you. Welcome yourself home. How can you welcome yourself home today? And if you can ever get to one of these intimacy retreats, you can just Google intimacy retreat, conscious sexuality retreats, then please go. It's incredibly liberating and incredibly helpful. And it really teaches us how to come home to self in a fully embodied and beautiful way. So I hope you've enjoyed listening. Please like and subscribe to my channel if you have. And please share this with someone who you think might need to hear this. And reach out to me if you want to chat. Yeah. Okay. Have a wonderful day, evening, whatever you're doing. It's very hot today, and I don't want the air conditioning on in this room because it's too noisy. So I am melting. But in a way, it's quite nice. Goodbye, my lovely dear ones.